A lot of you are probably getting ready to celebrate Thanksgiving. It's one of the most important holidays of every year. It was a big part of America coming together. When it comes to movies, however, there are only a few Thanksgiving movies. Now, during Christmas, you have movies like A Christmas Story, Home Alone, and those Rankin Bass specials. But for Thanksgiving, you have A Charlie Brown Thanksgiving, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, a classic. But that's pretty much it, right? Well, there's actually a Thanksgiving movie you might not have heard of because it wasn't very well received, and in fact is known to be one of the weakest movies in John Hughes' career, that being the 1991 flop Dutch. I'm Ethan Coe, and this is Dutch, the movie that ruined John Hughes' career. Now, before we get into the story of Dutch and how it came to be, I want to first talk about John Hughes. It's fair to say that he was the 80s movies king back then, churning out such memorable classics as Ferris Bueller's Day Off, 16 Candles, Pretty in Pink, The Breakfast Club, and Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. It seemed for a while that everything this man touches turned to gold. Every movie he made was a smash hit, and all of the critics loved his movies. It seemed like John Hughes could do no wrong. Until the start of the 90s. When he sort of lost his touch and started churning out mediocre, forgettable movies like Flubber or Home Alone 3. The 90s started off great with the release of Home Alone, becoming a smash hit and beloved by critics and audiences everywhere. But then Dutch came along and pretty much destroyed John Hughes' entire reputation. Sure, he made Home Alone 2 after this, but that wasn't enough to regenerate his reputation or get him back on top. Every film that followed afterwards was either negatively received or mediocrely received. But anyway, let's talk about the story of Dutch. The story is Dutch is a boyfriend to a single mom, and they're about to celebrate Thanksgiving. However, her bratty son is in school. Dutch offers to bring her snotty son over for Thanksgiving. So this movie is basically a buddy road trip movie, in the veins of Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Only where Planes, Trains, and Automobiles was funny, charming, and enjoyable with a lot of heart, Dutch is a mean-spirited, unpleasant movie with unlikable main characters and just a dark tone throughout, making for a very unpleasant experience that leaves you in a bad mood after you turn off the TV after watching it. The tone of this movie is so different from Hughes' other movies that I honestly was shocked to find out that it was a John Hughes movie. While watching this, I just couldn't stand these two main characters, and I couldn't give a crap if they made it for Thanksgiving. Dutch is an unlikable protagonist that tortures the boy non-stop and takes things way too far, while the boy, Doyle, is an ungrateful and irritating little brat. This is one of those movies where I just couldn't stand the two main characters. And unlike other movies where they start off bickering, but they kind of develop a relationship and you kind of get into their relationship and are invested in it and you want these two main characters to reach their destination, I never bought any kind of chemistry or development between these two because they are so mean and nasty to each other throughout the movie and do despicably horrible things to each other that I never believed in their friendship. This is the main problem with the movie and why people didn't resonate with it when it came out in theaters. Because it's just a very mean, nasty movie. And when people go to a Hughes movie, sure there are some mean, nasty undertones, but they never overtake the movie. Like, they're never too mean or nasty. I mean, look at 16 Candles. It's kind of mean and nasty, but in a hilarious way. Like, you feel for the main character, but the world and people are never too mean or nasty to the point where you want them all dead. They still have a likability and charm to them. With this movie, however, I didn't like a single character in it. This world was just too dark, too mean, too nasty, and way too cruel. Now, as for the humor, I don't think I laughed once. Like, the humor in this is so mean-spirited and cruel that I couldn't even crack a smile. Now, I said before that the kid was a brat, and he is. But he doesn't deserve half the shit that Dutch does to him. And how do they end this shit fest off? By having Dutch shoot him in the butt with a BB gun. I am dead freaking serious. That's how this movie ends. Just because he didn't apologize to Dutch. Even if he is a brat, that is going way too far. And that's definitely not a pleasant way to end a Thanksgiving movie. So guys, after Dutch released in 1991, it was an absolute box office bomb and all of the critics hated it. And I can definitely understand why. It's a very unpleasant movie that deviates way too far away from the charming John Hughes movie that we all love. And I can definitely see why this would be the film to kill off John Hughes' reputation for good filmmaking. And this is definitely not a movie that will get you into the Thanksgiving feeling. Now, guys, I gotta confess, I'm not a huge fan of Thanksgiving. In fact, I don't like Thanksgiving dinner at all. But even if, this is definitely not a movie that will get you into the Thanksgiving feeling. After the release of Dutch, John Hughes movies were not as revered as they once were. None of them were breaking box office records like they used to. None of them were getting the same amount of critical praise that they got from the previous decade. He still continued to make movies, sure, but they were not as well received as they used to be. In 2009, John Hughes tragically passed away, sadly putting a huge hole in this world. Dutch is honestly one of the worst movies ever made. It has nothing going for it. It's completely cruel and mean-spirited. Its characters are as likable as a nail. But worst of all, it has no heart. The heart that John Hughes successfully captured in all of his other movies is nowhere to be found in this soulless piece of garbage. And it saddens me that this even came out and destroyed a wonderful man's career. If he had never released this or rewrote the script, then who knows the heights that his career could have reached. But instead of wondering what could have been, we should all just be thankful for the wonderful legacy that he left behind. The wonderful, charming movies that he made in his prime, like Ferris Bueller's Day Off, 16 Candles, and especially Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, the greatest Thanksgiving movie of all time. With its charming, lovable characters, gut-bustingly hilarious comedy, and most importantly, that heart that all of John Hughes' greatest movies have, that really captures that Thanksgiving spirit. I recommend you to watch this beloved masterpiece rather than this train wreck piece of shit that completely ruined his career. So anyways, guys, you all have a wonderful Thanksgiving tomorrow, and I will see you on the next video. Take care.